Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto married Hinata but she got pregnant 6 months before the wedding part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. She groaned as she turned over trying desperately to get comfortable. She had been off of any sort of active duty for a few months already. As a result, there were no limitations on how long she could sleep on any given night, but she found herself utterly exhausted just from the situation she was in. "Are you awake?" Naruto whispered to his still newlywed wife. Hinata and Naruto's wedding from about 6 months ago was memorable to say the least. Yes, it was true that Hinata was already pregnant at the wedding, but surprisingly, that wasn't that big a deal as compared to the other things that happened. The Leaf's precious Koshosuru twins, gifted in reading the emotions of others, thus being able to tell their thought patterns and moods, and making them very valuable in diplomatic ventures, had been targeted and the wedding was attacked by 2 rogue shinobi. Thankfully, injuries were kept to a minimum and both the bride and groom escaped with no harm done at all. "What do you think?" answered Hinata sarcastically. She was definitely unlike her usual self. Naruto had been getting used to this new, moody side of his wife as her pregnancy neared its end, though he hoped the cause behind her moodiness would soon cease to affect her just so she could have some comfort. She was definitely not enduring the end of this pregnancy very well, not only because it was her first, but also because she was having twins. "Do you need me to do anything?" Naruto asked kindly. Hinata turned over again and made sure to overemphasize her flop back onto the mattress. "No," she said at first. After a few seconds, her tone changed and she added, "Thank you, Naruto. I'm sorry I keep taking this out on you." Naruto flashed a wide toothy grin. "It's fine," he answered. "Believe me, I've been through much worse." Hinata smiled back. "Yes, you're right. Though I still feel bad, it's almost as if I can't control my own emotions. Even so, it's all worth it. I can't wait to hold these 2 in my arms." Naruto scooted up so that he lied just behind her in a spooning position. He wrapped his arm around her and gently placed his palm on her belly. "Me neither. Oh, you're getting close, Hinata," said the pink-haired medical shinobi who was assigned to look after her. Sakura Haruno was one of the most gifted medical shinobi in the Leaf, which made perfect sense since she was a disciple of perhaps the greatest medical shinobi ever, and current Hokage, Tsunade. Sakura continued probing Hinata's body, holding her hands above Hinata's rotund belly and letting her chakra explore every inch of the lives still waiting to be born. "Thank you, Sak," Hinata started today. "Shish," Sakura interrupted. Hinata complied immediately. It was another 30 seconds before the green glow from Sakura's hands ceased and she sat up and stopped concentrating. "Sorry about that. Okay, you can talk now." "Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Sakura. I appreciate the fact that you are willing to look after me," Hinata said. "I don't blame you one bit for requesting me," answered Sakura, now wiping her hands down with a clean towel she had stashed nearby. "I would definitely ask a friend if it was an option, and for you, it was." Sakura helped Hinata sit up on the examining table by offering her hand. "Thanks," Hinata murmured. Hinata gently climbed down so that she was once again standing on the floor. "So what's the final verdict?" "You can go to the wedding," said Sakura. "Great!" exclaimed Hinata. "But," started Sakura. "But," Hinata repeated. "I want you to stay off your feet as much as possible. Your ankles and hands are really swelling. Your blood pressure is a little high as well. I'm giving you permission to attend the wedding, but you need to promise me to take it easy," said Sakura. "At least that's one wedding I can attend," said Hinata, trying to be positive about the situation. "Huh?" asked Sakura. "Oh, you mean Gaara's wedding. You already knew there was no chance in hell you were traveling to Suna for that wedding in 2 weeks. At least Neji and Tenten's wedding is this weekend. Pregnancies with twins often go quicker than with single babies and we have to be careful and keep you close to home." "Oh, I'm not that disappointed. It's not even like I know him all that well, said Hinata. I think Naruto wanted to go though. They are pretty good friends after all. For now, he'll just have to be satisfied with the big wedding that's going to be held here in Konoha, stated Sakura. Oh la 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 la. So what did she say? Asked Naruto that evening, knowing his wife had an appointment with Sakura at the hospital earlier that day. It was dinner time and the two of them were sitting at the kitchen table eating. She's okay with me going, but I need to rest and stay off my feet as much as possible, answered Hinata. She seemed a little threatening when she told me. That's just Sakura-chan, said Naruto, picking up his bowl and beginning to shovel soy-heavy rice into this mouth with his chopsticks. Hinata sat back. And there's no way I can, she started. I told you so, he said, grinning. I can't believe you would even ask about Gaara's wedding. I'm sorry, Naruto, she said. What for? He asked. He's your friend, after all. Perhaps you could still go, said Hinata. And leave you here. What if you go into labor while I'm gone? I'm good, but I'm not that good. I can't snap my fingers and travel hundreds of miles in the blink of an eye, said Naruto. Or would you prefer to not have me there when you have the twins? I'm not due for another 3 weeks, she started. First time pregnancy with twins, don't you remember what Sakura-chan always says? Usually they go early. In fact, I'm even a little surprised they aren't here already. Exclaimed Naruto. Hinata sat back. Yes, I know. I remember. I just feel bad. You've got to get over feeling guilty for everything, whether it is in your control or not, said Naruto. We're going to have 2 young ones to raise pretty soon and we're going to need to be good role models. It's no longer going to be about us. He stood up to take his bowl to the sink. It's so hard to believe, we're the first of all of us to get married, and now we'll be the first to have a kid, and we're having 2. He turned and picked up Hinata's empty bowl from the space in front of her. You don't regret it, do you? Regret? He repeated. Oh, you mean because we are so young? We are only 19, after all, she replied. PSSH, he said, waving his hand in the air. I love you, Hinata, and I'll love those babies. Finally, I'll have a family of my very own to love and protect. I couldn't ask for anything more. Hinata briefly thought about Naruto's lonely childhood and all that had happened to him before he graduated from the academy. It made sense, this would be just what he would want. There would be no regrets at all about taking things too fast for him. Oh la 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 la. The wedding was held the very same courtyard where Hinata and Naruto had gotten married less than a year ago. The main Hyuga courtyard was now more beautiful than ever, having been rebuilt only a few months ago after the attack against the Koshosuru twins by Sasuke's acquaintances Suigetsu Hazuka from Mist and current Konoha resident Jugo. It turned out to be a huge misunderstanding. Those who contracted Suigetsu and Jugo to kidnap the twins were the true enemies. Once the mess of the situation was sorted out, Suigetsu was allowed to leave Konoha once again to pursue his dream of finding the 7 swords of the mist. Jugo, on the other hand, opted to stay in Konoha. In fact, he was welcome to live at the Uchiha compound with Sakura and Sasuke. Music from string and wind instruments danced lightly through the air as the ceremony started and all talking amongst the guests ceased. Neji appeared in the front of the courtyard and walked up onto a small platform, followed closely by Hinata's father, Hiyashi. Not only was he the leader of the clan, but had become close with his nephew over the years since Neji discovered the truth about his father, Hizashi, and his death. Behind Hiyashi stood Rock Lee, Neji's teammate. Sakura and Ino were the first to appear in the back of the courtyard. With wide smiles and beautiful lilac dresses, they walked down the aisle towards where Neji stood. Once they got there, they dutifully stood to the side awaiting the bride along with everyone else. Tenten appeared in the back of the courtyard dressed in a simple white dress that looked like a cross between silk and satin. She carried white flowers, roses, in her hands and had small white flowers adorning her flowing brown hair. She almost never wore her hair down, but was glad to oblige Neji when he asked her to just this once. To Tenten's side appeared Might Guy, Neji and Tenten's sensei and the leader of Team Guy. He was the perfect selection to give her away since Tenten had no other family to speak of. Team Guy was her family, so really, she wasn't being given away at all. Slowly Guy and Tenten walked towards Neji. When they finally reached the small platform, Guy gently kissed her on her cheek and held out her hand for Neji to take. Hinata and Naruto were near enough to the platform that they heard most of what was being said by the officiant. At one point, Hinata grabbed Naruto's hand and held it, squeezing every so often when a poignant statement was made about love or how their lives would change. After only about 15 minutes, it was over, short, but very sweet indeed. The guests made their way to the very front of the courtyard while the remainder of the site was overhauled to make it suitable for the gathering of the friends and family who could attend. It definitely was never meant to be an over-the-top formal affair. Both Neji and Tenten just wanted a small celebration to mark the beginning of their life together as husband and wife. Hiyashi was happy to comply and the preparations were made. Naruto grabbed a plate of food from the food table and brought it back for Hinata to enjoy. She remained seated as much as possible, just as Sakura had asked her to. Just as Naruto was able to rejoin his wife, Neji and Tenten came by to greet them. It was a beautiful ceremony, said Hinata, making an attempt to rise from her chair. No, no, said Neji, placing his hand on his cousin's shoulder so that she wouldn't rise. There are no formalities here. Please, stay seated. After all, you have to be getting close, Tenten added, nodding at her belly. It could be any time, said Naruto. Are you nervous? Asked Tenten to Hinata. Before she could answer, Naruto jumped in. Nah, not really. I can't wait until they're here. Hinata and Tenten simply smiled to one another, knowing full well that question was meant for Hinata about her upcoming labor. Naruto, can you do me a favor and find Sakura for me? Hinata asked with a smile. Oh sure, he responded, not even thinking why his wife would need to see the person handling her delivery right this minute. In actuality, Hinata wanted to talk to both Tenten and Neji for a moment about the Hyuga clan, and as much as she loved Naruto, this wasn't exactly something he'd have an interest in hearing. Is everything okay? Tenten asked. I'm fine, said Hinata. I was curious though, Tenten, are you taking the Hyuga name? I was going to. Why, is there a problem with that? Tenten responded. I know the clan and the family name are important to you. That's why you are still Hyuga, and not an Uzumaki, right? No, no, I mean, yes, Hinata responded. She shook her head in confusion. What I meant to say is, when I saw you two up there confessing your love and stating your vows, I couldn't help but think that this is a new time for the Hyuga clan. We generally don't marry outside of the clan, and here two of its most important figures have married outsiders just this year. We don't even know how this will affect the bloodline. She paused to collect her thoughts. I was just thinking, we should formalize the plans for the clan's future, don't you think? I'm not sure I understand, said Tenten. I think I do, said Neji. With children in the clan who are only half Hyuga, there may be some question as to who is actually the heir, or if the head family is truly the head family, or if a half Hyuga can lead. Neji, as you know, changes to the clan have already started. We don't put that mark on everyone anymore, and there's a lot more unity, noted Hinata. I just want to continue to formalize, to get the elders' approval, the path forward from here. Suddenly she gritted her teeth and let out a grunt. She doubled over and grabbed her belly. Hinata. Both Tenten and Neji yelled at once. Oh la 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 la. Hinata sat in the bed as the world around her seemed to whiz by. Naruto was firmly planted next to her, holding her hand, but other medical shinobi and nurses were constantly checking this or that or giving her instructions or support each and every time a labor pain hit. Oh, she shouted all of a sudden. Another one? Asked Naruto. They're coming so fast now. Hinata tried to concentrate to get through the unbearable without yelling, but it was quickly becoming too much for her. The pain wound down and Hinata spied a flash of pink among those who were tending to her. Sakura, she questioned. You're doing fine, Hinata, said Sakura. No, Hinata started. You know, if you were in labor at the wedding, you should have sent Naruto to get me sooner, said Sakura almost as an afterthought as she put a glove on her hand and gently squeezed some lubricant on her fingers. I didn't, she started again, but was interrupted again. She couldn't quite get out that her sending Naruto to find her was a ploy for temporary privacy so she could talk to Neji and Tenten and really had nothing to do with being in labor. I'm going to check you now. Based on the intensity and duration of the pain as well as the fact that you, for the most part, don't have much downtime in between contractions anymore, I'd venture a guess that you are just about ready, said Sakura. Here comes another one, Hinata urged. Sakura checked Hinata once her contraction had eased. Hinata looked at Sakura trying to read her thoughts before she said them out loud. I'd say that you are complete, Hinata. Actually, I'm kind of surprised that, said Sakura, but was quickly interrupted by Hinata this time. I have to push, she shouted. She pushed back on the bed just a bit, having now felt this new, unfamiliar feeling. Hold on, said Sakura. Sakura started barking out orders to the staff around her, making sure that everything was prepped and ready for the second stage of labor. Sakura, Hinata shouted when the next wave hit, and all she wanted to do was bear down as a result. I can't. Go ahead, said Sakura firmly when all was finally in place. Sakura dutifully remained near Hinata's feet, watching any and all progress being made. Sakura, that was only a couple of hours, said Naruto, still sitting at Hinata's head and wiping her brow every so often. Does it usually go that fast? No, not really, answered Sakura. But everyone is different. I've seen a few faster than Hinata, but usually it lasts between 12 and 24 hours. Here it comes, Hinata informed her supporters. Okay, we're ready, answered Sakura. Hinata bore down and pushed while Sakura counted to 10. She then released, took a large breath, and started to push while Sakura counted to 10 again. You're doing great, Naruto encouraged her when this go-round was done. After 30 minutes of pushing, Hinata deemed fit to ask, how much longer? Not long now, maybe 3 or 4 more, Sakura answered. Knowing that it was nearing the end, Hinata was immediately strengthened and pushed even harder the next few pushes. Then she heard Sakura say, hold on, Hinata, stop for a minute. Hinata could feel Sakura touching her. Okay, one last push for baby number 1, said Sakura. Hinata pushed one last time and felt something like a release. Before she knew it, there was a baby laying face down on top of her still pregnant tummy. One of the assistant med nins was wiping the baby off briskly with a towel. Hinata instinctively grabbed both the baby under its arms and held it to her. It's a boy, said Naruto lowly so only Hinata could hear him. Tears started welling in his eyes. He wiped them off with the inside of his sleeve. The assistant cleared the baby's nostrils and mouth and placed something on his cord. Then he motioned for Naruto to cut, which he did. Naruto, go with my assistant and the baby to the table over there, instructed Sakura. Once the baby was gone, Sakura quickly felt Hinata's abdomen. She quickly checked her vaginally as well. Hinata noted her look went from very serious to almost relieved. What's going on, Sakura? Hinata asked. Are you ready for number 2? Sakura asked. It's in a perfect position. Sure, I guess, said Hinata. Isn't something supposed to? Oh. It doesn't take long before the contractions normally start up again, but it won't be nearly as long this time, said Sakura. Naruto walked back over to be with Hinata. How is he? She asked. Perfect, he said. In only 10 additional minutes, a second baby had been delivered in a similar manner to the first. Naruto kissed his wife gently on the forehead when both babies were out. A boy and a girl, he whispered to Hinata. Did you already pick out names? Asked Sakura, who was still sitting near Hinata's feet taking care of the remnants of the birth. Hinata loving looked at Naruto. Yes. Kiro and Aiko, said Naruto, proudly. Do we have two? Asked Sasuke as Sakura led him to the Hyuga compound one foggy evening. We've seen them a million times already. I promised Hinata that we'd drop by tonight, insisted Sakura. You just want to see the babies, it isn't about Hinata or Naruto at all, noted Sasuke. Sakura stopped walking and turned to face her fiancé. Sasuke Uchiha, I don't pressure you at all. I don't ask you about when we're getting married or when we're having kids. The least you could do is let me see their babies since we aren't even close to having any of our own. But, said Sasuke. But right then, they got to the front door and it opened without them even having to knock. Sakura, Sasuke, please come in, said a very pleasant Hinata in hostess mode. Thank you, said Sakura, taking a step into the house and giving Sasuke one last look. Sasuke just rolled his eyes as his fiancée's overly mannerly greeting to a woman who had been her friend since their academy days. Hinata giggled. Hello to you, too, Sasuke. He followed Sakura inside and sat down so that he could take off his shoes. How are the babies? Sakura asked Hinata. Did Aiko's fever last much longer? Sakura was referring to the last time she saw Aiko at the hospital due to a prolonged fever. No, not really. That powder you gave me really did the trick. By the next morning, the fever had broken, said Hinata. That's good to hear, said Sakura. I'm going to find Naruto, said Sasuke, no longer wanting to sit there and listen to idle chat about the babies. Oh, he should be in the living room, said Hinata. Though Sasuke, please be quiet, the babies are probably asleep. Thanks, said Sasuke before walking to where he figured Naruto would be. Sasuke headed towards the living room. He found Naruto sitting in his favorite chair, feet raised, reading from a pile of papers. Dobi, Sasuke greeted. Oh hey, Sasuke, you guys are here, said Naruto. Don't tell me you are seriously working. The work day is long gone and tomorrow's the weekend, noted Sasuke. Well, you know, said Naruto. We all can't be regular shinobi like you, Tem. I have my. Yes, your responsibilities, said Sasuke waving his hand at his friend. Must be hard being the Hokage to be. Naruto knew Sasuke was just teasing him so he didn't take anything he said seriously. Oh la 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 la. Hinata brought Sakura to the kitchen where they could talk. Sakura loved to discuss how the twins were doing and what milestones they were reaching. She was interested as the medical shinobi who delivered them as well as being a good friend. Even though she only saw them every once in a while, she still felt very connected to them, like they were somehow her responsibility. Just the same, Hinata loved to talk about her children to anyone who would listen. The two of them paired up made for a long night of endless talking with babies being the main topic of the conversation. What have they done lately? Sakura asked. Kiro loves his feet and he grabs them and sticks his toes into his mouth, and Aiko just recently found herself in the mirror. It's so cute, proclaimed Hinata. Sakura sighed, but looked a little melancholy. What's wrong, Sakura? Asked Hinata. Oh, it's nothing, said Sakura. I have a nice shoulder here for you to cry on if you ever need it, prodded Hinata. Sakura paused, then smiled. No, it's fine. I'm just a little jealous, that's all. I thought as much. But you already know you can drop by here whenever you want, even if it is just to see the twins and not Naruto or me, said Hinata. Thanks, Hinata. I already feel like I'm in your lives enough as it is. But even so, I'm not sure it's enough for me, explained Sakura. What do you mean? Asked Hinata. Here you and Naruto are, happily married and 2 kids in your home already. I'm not even married yet. And kids. Who knows when that will happen? Explained Sakura. Hinata giggled. What's so funny? Sakura asked. Just the irony of the situation, she answered. Isn't Sasuke the one who needs to repopulate a clan? And here you are his soon-to-be wife pining for the kids to come sooner rather than later. Sakura giggled as well. I guess you're right. I never thought of that. But seriously Sakura, If you want it that much, why don't you push him a little harder? You know how stubborn he is. Sometimes you have to practically knock him upside the head with something before he sees what is so clear to the rest of us, said Hinata. Don't I know it, said Sakura. There's just one thing that is holding me back from saying anything. That is? Asked Hinata. I just have this feeling down in my gut that my life is really going to change once Sasuke and I get married and have kids. And I don't mean in a bad way necessarily. I'm just not sure if I'm prepared to make those kinds of changes just yet. I'm sure he'd marry me in an instant if I asked. I'm sure he's sensing my hesitation though. Sounds to me like you have cold feet, said Hinata. If you are waiting for the perfect time, or a signal from God, you might be waiting a little while. There is never a perfect time, Sakura. Hinata turned her head, hearing a cry coming from the baby's room. She rose to see who it was and Sakura followed. Following Hinata to the baby's room, Sakura continued to think about the situation, thinking carefully about what Hinata just said. Sure, she enjoyed her shinobi life, danger, missions, freedom and the thrill of it all, but something was pulling her towards becoming a mother and leaving her current life behind, even if just temporarily. She was envious in a way of her friend and the progress she and Naruto had made in making their family. Was now the time to say something to Sasuke? Should she open that can of worms just yet? Oh la 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 la, is it getting any better? Asked Sasuke, taking a seat on the sofa. Naruto placed his papers aside. No, not really, he answered. The constant crying and diaper changing. Hinata is taking on most of it since she's not on active duty any longer, but still, it can be frustrating. He looked at Sasuke. So when are you planning to go through all this? Don't you need to repopulate your clan? Naruto asked. He meant it jokingly, but Sasuke wasn't really sure exactly how much was a joke with the serious undertone he sensed. I don't know, Dobi. You don't seem to be very happy, Sasuke offered. What? Don't get me wrong, Sasuke. I never said I wasn't happy. It's just hard to get used to. It's the biggest change to my life that I've ever experienced. I thought getting married would be huge, but it is nothing like having a child, Naruto explained. Ah, I see, Sasuke replied, and didn't say anything else. Naruto raised his eyebrows as if to prod his friend a little more. What? Asked Sasuke. So when are you going to get married and have kids? Naruto re-asked the question that was never answered. Seriously, Sasuke facepalmed. You are cornering me for an answer about that. Naruto nodded. To be honest, I'm sort of waiting for Sakura, Sasuke said. Sakura. But you are already engaged. She said she would marry you and that was a while ago, noted Naruto. Yeah, but I'm being extra cautious. The whole, repopulate the clan, business can get old at times and I don't want her thinking that is my only expectation once we start having kids. She's a powerful kunoichi and a damn good medical shinobi. It needs to be her who decides when she is ready to make the next step. Didn't you just lament how big the changes are when the kids start coming? Touché, Sasuke. I get it, said Naruto. He paused. I'll just have to start bugging her then. Naruto, don't badger her, said Sasuke. Okay, I was just kidding, said Naruto. Next topic please, said Sasuke putting an end to that particular subject. Oh la 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 la. Hinata and Sakura arrived in Kiro and Aiko's room which was situated directly next to the master bedroom in case any attention needed to be paid to the babies in the middle of the night. Feedings were still happening 2 times a night as it was and Hinata wanted to make the distance between herself and them as small as possible so as not to disturb Naruto who would need to get up in the morning. Hinata reached into the crib and lifted Kiro, who was the one who had been obviously crying, into her arms. She walked over to the rocking chair and took a seat and started feeding him. So are you guys invited to Kiba's wedding? Asked Hinata as she gently rocked. Yeah, are you going? Asked Sakura. You know how Naruto is. He's not Hokage and who even knows when he'll become Hokage, but he still feels the need to attend everything he possibly can just to make the right impression, said Hinata. You sound like you don't want to go, said Sakura. I love Kiba. I mean, he's my teammate after all. And so is Shino, and he is getting married in a few months as well, but I'm just a little uncomfortable with the whole clan thing, admitted Hinata. But Hinata, you live here with your clan as well, noted Sakura. I would have thought if anyone understood clans and how they work, it would have been you. Yeah, I guess that didn't make a lot of sense. Let me try to explain. The Inuzuka clan and the Aburame clan are really strange, possessive, doubtful of outsiders. I don't know quite how to put it. Hinata tried to explain. As close as the three of us got as teammates, there was still this uncrossable line between them and their clans. Now they are marrying within their clans as well, so it really is a clan event, and I'm not sure how much the invitations were only sent for etiquette purposes versus how much they really want us there. Hinata, I'm sure they want us there. We all practically grew up together, you know. Sakura tried to ease Hinata's doubts. Either way, even if we are the outcasts and everyone else ignores us, at least we'll be there together and can still wish them well. I guess that's true, noted Hinata. I just really wish I knew if they really wanted us there. I think you are being too sensitive on the matter, said Sakura. Just trust me. They love you and want you there for their most precious day for sure. Oh la 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 la. Are you going to Shikamaru's farewell party? Asked Naruto. Sasuke paused to think for a moment. It's really a shame that he's actually leaving. When is the party? Next Saturday, said Naruto. The week before Kiba's wedding. Isn't he marrying some girl from his clan? Asked Sasuke, diverting from the Shikamaru topic. Yeah, I think her name is Dakashi or something. She's not a shinobi, said Naruto. Shino just got engaged as well, didn't he? He just met his fiancée a few weeks ago, noted Sasuke. It was kind of an arranged thing. Shino and the Aburames aren't exactly the most emotional people. Can you even imagine Shino falling in love or chasing after a girl? Asked Naruto. Not really, quipped Sasuke. And even if he did find someone, we probably wouldn't have a clue because he wouldn't change at all. He'd still be as grumpy as ever. Let me tell you, things within both those clans work a little differently. I've had to learn about all the clans who align themselves with Konoha as part of my leadership training. They are very big on keeping the bloodlines pure, else the connection with their animals and insects won't be as strong. I see. Makes sense, noted Sasuke. It kind of sucks for them if they happen to fall in love outside of the clan then. It doesn't happen often, said Naruto. On average, there is a non-clan wedding only about once a generation. I guess the Nara clan isn't quite as strict, said Sasuke, turning the conversation back to Shikamaru. He is leaving Konoha for love after all. Everyone's getting married, noted Naruto. Sasuke flashed him another look to shut the hell up about him, and Sakura and Naruto dutifully obeyed with a slight grin. 20 is a good age to marry, especially as a shinobi. The average lifespan is a little shorter than your everyday Konoha citizen, said Sasuke. Sadly, that is the case. The data proves it, though for the more powerful shinobi, I don't think it's a huge consideration. I'm not planning on dying young. I'm going to be as old as the third when I go, said Naruto. Me, too, said Sasuke. Just then the ladies entered the room. Yes, and we're going Saturday night as well, said Sakura to Hinata. Saturday night? Shikamaru's farewell party? Asked Sasuke. Did you get the invitation? Yeah, a few days ago, didn't I tell you? Asked Sakura in return. No, Naruto just told me, said Sasuke. Sakura sat down on the sofa next to Sasuke and Hinata sat on the arm of Naruto's chair. I can't believe he's really going, said Hinata. You're telling me, instead of being my closest advisor, now he will be Gaara's, said Naruto. Naruto, you don't know that. He's going to Sand to be with Temari, but nothing was ever said about him in Gaara's team of advisors. Naruto smiled. There is no way in hell that he'd go all the way there to sit back and be a house husband. And sand is our closest ally, too. Allowing him to serve on Gaara's panel is the most logical thing, said Naruto. Doesn't the Hokage have to give him permission, at least if he wants to technically remain a leaf shinobi and wear the headband? Asked Sasuke. Naruto made a face and quickly covered his mouth with his hand. So you know about this already and weren't supposed to tell anyone, right? Asked Sakura. Naruto freed his hand. Kind of. His cheeks started to glow a slight pink. He had made a mistake, albeit a low-risk one, but he was embarrassed nonetheless. Don't worry, Naruto, we won't say anything, said Hinata. Oh la 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 la. Sasuke and Sakura walked out of Naruto and Hinata's home and watched as their two friends waved goodbye from their doorway. Once they were a sufficient distance away, they started to talk. Do you think Jugo's home? Asked Sakura. I think he has a friend in town. He'll probably be out late, said Sasuke. Friend? Sakura questioned. Yeah, now that he is caring for all the messenger birds for the leaf, he's had a chance to connect with some of the shinobi in other villages who do the same thing, explained Sasuke. A while ago, Jugo and a few others had been challenged to complete a course of sorts that would enable them to either leave the village peacefully, as Suigetsu did, become a Konoha shinobi. Karen opted for this, or become a non-shinobi citizen of the leaf. He opted for the latter choice, really having no home and no desire to fight anyone ever again. Because they were good friends and former teammates, Sasuke invited him to live in the recently rebuilt Uchiha compound with him and Sakura. At some point, Sasuke envisioned that the compound would be full of clan members once again. However, he knew that he probably wouldn't live to see that day. It would probably take quite a few generations after him for that to happen. Jugo was asked to take on the task of caring for the messenger birds belonging to Konoha. He was optimal for that job, and with him doing it, it freed up other well-trained shinobi from having to feed and clean the important birds. They would now be able to concentrate on other matters that the leaf really needed them for. Jugo never said a friend was visiting, said Sakura. He told me he got some random message a few weeks back that had a green stamp on it, said Sasuke. Green stamp, so not confidential, open to all eyes? Asked Sakura. A green stamp message was the only kind Jugo was permitted to open on his own. It was the lowest priority, non-emergency message that could be sent. When he opened it, it turned out to be from a shinobi from Sand who was in the same position Jugo is in. He sent the message as mere exercise for a bird that hadn't been used in a while and told Jugo that he thought the various caretakers of the birds could get to know each other using this method. Since then, a network of sorts has started around this exercise program and many villages have opted to join in, explained Sasuke. So who is he with tonight? Asked Sakura. Some guy from Hidden Cloud happened to be in town on a low-level mission and they arranged to meet face to face, said Sasuke. Sakura decided to grab Sasuke's hand as they walked. It wasn't normal for Sakura, or Sasuke for that matter, to show affection of any sort in public. However, it did happen from time to time, normally when one of them was feeling particularly romantic or emotional. Sasuke, Sakura said to get his attention. He replied. I was thinking, she started, but then paused. He looked at her as she talked, waiting for her to complete her sentence. Are you? She continued. Are you ready to get married? It's been a while since you asked. I mean, if you're not ready, then we can wait a while longer. I'm in no particular rush to. He stopped walking, faced her, and held up a finger to her lips. I was ready the day I asked you to marry me. If you are ready, then so am I. I love you, she said. They shared a kiss before continuing on their way. Sakura sat in her bathrobe at her kitchen table in her home at the Uchiha compound. The newspaper was on the table in front of her and she took a sip from her raised teacup. Good morning, Sakura, said Jugo, opening the door leading to the kitchen. Even though he lived in another part of the compound pretty much right next door, it had become commonplace for him to visit Sakura and Sasuke's kitchen for breakfast and tea most mornings. Oh hi, Jugo, answered Sakura. Big plans for the day? No, not really. It's a normal workday, said Jugo. You may get paid for it, but I wouldn't call it work, not for you anyway, said Sakura, making small talk. Yeah, you're right, said Jugo, opening up the refrigerator to see what was in there. I made toast. Have some, said Sakura, nodding towards a plate in the center of the table. Jugo took a seat and took 2 slices. Thanks. Isn't Sasuke up? I'm surprised you are sitting here alone. He was still sleeping when I got up. He got in really late though, so it's understandable. They decided to come straight home from his latest mission instead of spending the night in the forest, said Sakura. And what about you? Big plans for today? Asked Jugo. No, just work at the hospital, answered Sakura. Aren't you up a little early for that? He asked. Wow, you know my normal schedule so well, she quipped. I have to get to the hospital a little early this morning. I need to leave a little early for a fitting. So this is finally going to happen? Asked Jugo with a smile on his face. It's about time. Morning. Sasuke entered yawning, one arm stretching while the other scratched the back of his head. He also had a bathrobe on, but it was hastily tied and the 2 flaps were somewhat open, exposing his boxers underneath. You look rough, said Jugo, his friend and former teammate. Yesterday was a really long day, Sasuke said. Not only did we spend half the day at full speed trying to get back here, we didn't stop for dinner, then ended up not getting in until 1 a.m. anyway. What was the hurry? Jugo asked. Naruto was on the team, said Sasuke flatly. Sakura smiled, knowing exactly what Sasuke was referring to. I don't get it, said Jugo. Sakura turned to her friend. Ever since Naruto had his kids, let's just say he doesn't like to spend a lot of time outside of the leaf. And if there is a chance to get back early, well, you better believe he'll be trying to take advantage of it. At least I get today off, said Sasuke. It was the least he could do. He can do that? Asked Jugo. No, not really. But Tsunade won't question something like that. He'll report to her and tell her that he did give us the day off and she'll just accept it even if she wouldn't have done the same thing, explained Sasuke. She's trying to give him a bit more freedom as far as his leadership goes. It's part of the Hokage training process, Sakura said. I see, acknowledged Jugo. I have to get dressed so I can get to work, said Sakura, standing up from the table. I'll drop by for lunch, said Sasuke. Have a good day, said Jugo. Sakura went back to her and Sasuke's bedroom and started to get ready. She loved her job at the hospital and was a bit scared at this next step she was taking, but she had already made up her mind that this wedding was going to happen one way or the other. Like Hinata had said, there is never going to be an absolutely perfect time to make this life change. Besides, Sasuke had promised her that they would work together so that she could still continue working as a medical shinobi and as a member of Team 7 on their missions as much as possible. Sakura stepped into the bedroom and the sight of the Uchiha symbol on the back of Sasuke's shirt tossed hastily aside caught her eye. He really needs to pick up after himself, she muttered as she went to pick it up. She ended up holding it up for just a split second as her mind caught on one particular thought. I can't believe I'm standing here in this place. She briefly let her hand lightly brush the Uchiha symbol. All that had happened since the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War suddenly flashed before her. Everything had led to this exact moment. Sasuke deciding to support Naruto in his final battle with Tobi, Sasuke's decision to return to Konoha because of his brother Itachi and all he believed in, and Tsunade allowing him to as long as he was open to some restrictions and punishment as a result of his past actions. Even after all that, Sasuke had to win back the trust of the Leaf as well as the other hidden villages. He was even accused of murdering the last 2 existing elders, the ones who had been a part of Itachi's order to kill his clan and the ones who had ordered the kidnapping of the Koshosuru twins, and he was able to get past all that as well. These days, Sasuke was a Junin-level shinobi who was back to being fully trusted with the most secret of information. Team 7 was again whole and still did missions together when all their talents were needed. The Uchiha compound had been rebuilt and was ready to be filled with the first generation since the massacre. Sasuke had made amends to everyone he had wronged in the past, whether officially called for or not. Now she and Sasuke were engaged, him having asked her to marry him during a rather intimate moment, and were living together moving forward with their lives. Who would have ever thought everything would come together like this? Sakura giggled. If only her 10-year-old self could see her now. She had liked him since at least then. She first laid eyes on him when she was 4 and just entering the academy, but the first time she remembered even thinking that he might be good boyfriend material was about the age of 10. It was probably puberty starting to kick in. Oh la 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 la. For Sakura, it was a regular workday. Nothing special was planned, just the normal rounds, checking on the patients she was responsible for. As she was entering one of the rooms, she noted that Tsunade and Shizune were down the hall talking to some of the staff. Sakura quickly changed course to find out what was going on. It was very odd for them both to be here at the same time. Lady Tsunade, why are you here? It's odd that you are in the hospital with all the other work that you, Sakura asked as she approached her mentor. I wanted to check on the status of the 2 injured shinobi who returned to Konoha last night, Tsunade answered. 2. Repeated Sakura. She obviously hadn't heard. Nothing for you to worry about, Sakura, said Tsunade. We have it all under control. Oh, okay, she said. Something's up, she thought to herself. Why are they being so standoffish? Sakura went on her way and finished up her own rounds. She saw Tsunade enter one of the rooms, presumably to talk to the injured shinobi. Within 15 minutes she was back in the hallway again. This time she was apparently alone, but nonetheless, she wasn't making any effort to leave. Lady Tsunade. Sakura approached her again. Tsunade just exhaled as if she had been caught doing something again. I'm just visiting the shinobi who were injured last evening, Sakura. I know, milady. You've already made that abundantly clear. So why are you still here? Asked Sakura. Then, from the back of the nurse's station emerged Shizune. Lady Tsunade, are you ready to go? She stopped in mid-sentence when she saw Sakura standing there. You two are obviously hiding something, said Sakura. Usually if you two know something, I'm in on it, too. Isn't that how we usually work? Shizune looked a little defeated by this time as well. I don't get it, said Sakura aloud, noting the atmosphere. We were just going to get a bite to eat, said Shizune. Care to join us? Oh, sure. Hold on a second, said Sakura as she rushed to do a few last-minute things before she was able to head out for a bit. The 3 comrades walked to a restaurant near the hospital, took their seats, and ordered their food. Shizune gave Sakura a look. What? She asked, feeling a tad bit self-conscious. This is not yet public information, said Shizune. The only reason I know about it is because of Kankuro. I made plans to meet with Lady Tsunade at the hospital after her visit, but your instincts are just too good, Sakura. I'd rather tell you as well rather than have you bug me or Lady Tsunade about it for the next few days. Shizune and Kankuro had been dating long distance since the Hokage's dinner the night before Naruto's wedding to Hinata. Tsunade had hosted an event for the occasion, and among those attending were the 3 Sand siblings. Shikamaru and Tamari had already been dating, but the flirting that took place that night between Shizune and Kankuro was a sight to see. They had agreed to date ever since, even though they both knew they had other obligations to their respective villages, and being together for more than a week at a time on occasion would be very rare indeed. In fact, now that she thought about it, she would have tagged Shizune to give up everything and move to Sand to be with Kankuro way before she would have expected Shikamaru to do the same. What is it? Is everything alright? Asked Tsunade. The Kage's wife is expecting, said Shizune. Gara, said Sakura aloud. She never would have considered him the type to marry, let alone do what it took to actually make a baby. Good for him, said Tsunade. But that still doesn't explain why all the secrecy. Why is that news so important that you needed to tell me immediately, and privately? Shizune looked down for a moment. There's something else. asked Tsunade. Shizune started to speak, but her eyes were still averted. I wanted to tell you as soon as I could in case I started wavering again. I'm thinking about. You're moving to sand, is that it? Blurted out Sakura, not taking into account the serious turn the conversation seemed to have taken. Sakura. Shizune yelled at her fellow disciple. Sorry, muttered Sakura. Tsunade calmly picked up her tea and took a sip. Is that it, Shizune? Why yes, Shizune answered. I don't know what you were expecting me to say, but I'm happy to hear it, said Tsunade. What? Both Shizune and Sakura said in unison, looking at Tsunade with wide eyes. But, I would have thought you'd be upset if I left, said Shizune. I'll miss you and your company, said Tsunade. But, I'm not a fool. You've followed me around all these years, even before we returned to the leaf. It is about time you stopped doing things for me and thought of yourself. Go off, get married, have children, be happy. Thank you, milady, said an obviously relieved Shizune. Excuse me for a moment. She got up and ran off. Where do you think she's going? Asked Sakura. To where we keep the messenger birds, I'd imagine, said Tsunade. She's been acting weird for over a week now, and I'm sure she'll want to tell Kankuro that it's over and she is free to go. I see, said Sakura, taking a bite of her lunch. How did you know this was coming? First I noticed she was acting funny. I wasn't sure what was going on, but figured she'd tell me eventually. But then, a few days ago, I caught her wearing a ring I had never seen before. It really looked like an engagement ring. I didn't get a chance to ask her about it, and after that day, I never saw it again. I can only guess that perhaps she accidentally forgot to take it off before reporting to Hokage Tower that one day, explained Tsunade. You are so observant, milady, noted Sakura. Tsunade took a sip of tea again. I must say one thing about the situation though, she pondered. What's that? Sakura asked. I'm happy Gaara already married a sand shinobi. We can't afford to send many more of our best and brightest over there. Sakura smiled at her mentor's comment. She knew it was true, even if it was said with an air of humor. Oh la 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 la. Pregnant, said Hinata to Sakura when they decided to walk to the nearby shopping district that evening. The twins were along for the ride as well. That's what Shizune said, and with her direct connection to Kankuro, I'm sure it's not wrong, said Sakura. Speaking of Shizune and Kankuro, started Hinata. Oh, they're getting married, too, added Sakura. Really? Exclaimed Hinata. I found out earlier today, replied Sakura. How exactly is that going to work? Asked Hinata. How do you think? Answered Sakura. She's leaving. Hinata sighed. Another one, she offered. Yes, said Sakura. But what do you expect with such widespread peace in the world? Lots of chances to intermingle amongst the villages. I would expect a lot more shinobi will be leaving their homes to be with their loved ones eventually. It will probably be how it is from now on. You're right, said Hinata. I've noticed it myself with a few new faces here and there around here. Usually it turns out they move here to be with someone they worked with from another village. It will just make the world more stable, said Sakura. We'll be much less likely to be enemies if there are shinobi from all over the world living in all the villages together. Speaking of weddings, said Hinata. How is yours coming along? The usual, said Sakura. It's a little difficult since we both don't want anything big, but we have so many people we should really invite. So it's a large-small wedding? Asked Hinata. Either that or a small-large wedding, joked Sakura back. Just then Aiko started fussing in her stroller seat. She and Kiro were definitely getting older and could now be considered toddlers rather than babies. Hinata stopped, unbuckled her and lifted her up out of the seat. And pretty soon, you and many others are going to have little ones of your own, said Hinata. Won't it be fun to have them all in the academy at the same time? Sakura blinked her eyes a couple of times before she was finally able to keep them open for good. She lay there for a few seconds before coming to a sudden realization. Where am I? She panicked. Then she remembered. She was at Ino's apartment. Ino Yamanaka was one of Sakura's closest friends. They had always had an outwardly hostile relationship when they were younger, but as they grew older, they naturally got over their rivalry, most of it anyway, and matured. "You're awake," said a cheerful Ino after peering past the partially closed door and into the room where Sakura slept. Said Sakura, raising both arms over her head and stretching. "Did you sleep well?" Ino asked. "Not as good as if I were in my own bed, but yeah, I slept pretty well," she admitted. Sakura let her eyes wander over to the clock by the bedside. "Is that seriously what time it is?" she fretted. "No worries," said Ino. "It's not like you have to get ready or anything." Sakura had to think about that last comment for a few seconds. Ino was right. Other than taking a shower and putting on a robe, what else was there for her to do? She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood up. "Hinata is already here and I'm sure Tenten will be here soon," said Ino. "Go get in the shower, then come to the kitchen for breakfast." Sakura was still uncomfortable with so much attention being firmly placed upon her. She knew that she had certain obligations for varying reasons, why she had to actually have a wedding, yet she still wished for the smallest, most informal wedding possible. Ino, on the other hand, was more than happy to prod her along. Sakura did as she was instructed, and by the time she reached Ino's tiny kitchen, Tenten had arrived. Ino served Sakura a cup of tea while Hinata cut her a piece of Danish. "I can do that myself, you know," said Sakura with a hint of amusement in her voice. "Oh, sorry," said Hinata. "I'm just used to, sorry." Hinata was now used to serving toddlers who couldn't prepare or serve their own food. She caught herself at times behaving the same way towards others as she had just done now with Sakura. "So what's first, Ino?" asked Tenten. Ino looked at the clock on the stove. "I've broken it down into 3 basic steps: beauty, clothes, and flowers. Beauty will begin right about." Knock knock. Someone was at the door. Ino left the kitchen to go get it. "Right this way," Sakura heard her say. "The living room is probably the best place." Ino stuck her head into the doorway to the kitchen. "Are you just about ready, Sakura?" But before she should finish her thought, Ino had grabbed her hand and she was back on her feet once again. Sakura entered the living room to find 4 strangers standing there, smiling at her. "Only the best for my best friend," said Ino. Sakura saw a single chair behind the 4 strangers. "Please," one of them said as they opened up to display it to her. She took it as her cue to have a seat. Immediately, one of the 4 reached into his pocket and pulled out a comb and a pair of scissors. Number 2 stood in front of her and used some sort of a wet pencil to dot her face. 3 and 4 went after her hands and feet respectively. "Please close your eyes," said number 2 just as number 1 said, "Now don't move." She was nervous at first. After all, she was not the type to be pampered, but a few minutes into it, she eased into the various activities happening around her. She followed whatever commands were given to her, all the while remaining as still as possible with her eyes closed. One by one, the people around her seemed to back off until the only thing left was the sound of a blow dryer and a single hand fluffing her hair. When that finally stopped, she opened her eyes. "Hold on," shouted Ino, who rushed into her bedroom. She emerged holding a full-length mirror. "I keep this behind my door," she explained. "It comes in handy now and again." She held it up for Sakura to now see what had been done. Stunned at first, a smile slowly emerged as the 4 strangers remained standing next to one another waiting with bated breath. "I'm beautiful," she said. "Like I said," said Ino. "Only the best." The 4 beauty consultants that Ino had hired smiled and talked with her as Tenten and Hinata brought Sakura to Ino's bedroom where it had been stored temporarily. Although she had picked out the dress with her friends, and had been to several fittings, she had never seen herself in the final package. It was a delicate operation to get Sakura's clothes off without messing up her hair. Her makeup was the main concern when gingerly placing the white gown over her head. But in less than 10 minutes, she was finally fully dressed. Tenten and Hinata stood at either side of Sakura smirking. What? Sakura asked. Close your eyes and lift up your feet one at a time, said Tenten. Huh? Sakura questioned. She rolled her eyes, deciding it was better to just go with the flow. First one foot then the other, the shoes felt different than she remembered. Opening her eyes once they were on her feet, she immediately peered down to see what was going on. Those ones you picked out just weren't you, said Tenten. Not to mention, they really didn't go with the dress, said Hinata. So we bought you these, they both said in virtual unison. Not that there was anything wrong with the shoes she had picked out before, but Sakura had to agree that these shoes just seemed. Her old ones were more traditional with a closed toe and not much of a design on them. These were open-toed and were very strappy and much more modern. Thanks guys, but you didn't have to, said Sakura. The doorbell then rang. I'll get it, shouted Ino, who was apparently still in the living room. Sakura heard the door open and some rustling. Then the door closed again. I wonder. Sakura, now fully dressed in a floor-length gown, made her way to the living room as best as she could. Who was that? Asked Sakura as she walked. The flowers are here, Ino said as she held up Sakura's bouquet towards her so she could see. Hinata gasped when she saw the crisp bouquet of mostly white and pink. Sakura had to admit, Ino had really outdone herself this time. I'll put this back in the box until we get to the park, said Ino. Thanks, said Sakura. It's getting a little late, stated Tenten. I'm ready, said Hinata. Are we missing anything? No, I don't think so, replied Ino. Sakura, are you ready? I think so, she said. Then she took a really deep breath and let it out. Let's go, said Ino. But be careful, we don't want anything to ruin the dress before we get there. Carefully, the four girls maneuvered their way to the outside world, taking care that Sakura's dress, shoes, flowers, hair, and makeup would stay as preserved as possible. Oh la 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 la. Just like the Hyuga compound, the recently rebuilt Uchiha compound also had a courtyard. Right now, having been in existence for only a year or two, its gardens and trees were still very young and new. When they were discussing where they should get married, Sasuke was skeptical at first about even considering the courtyard. It wasn't exactly his idea of grandeur. Sakura, on the other hand, thought it was the perfect venue for them. First of all, what could be any easier since they live there? Also, Sakura didn't want a big, fancy wedding, and this was just the homey atmosphere she wanted. All she cared about was marrying the man she had loved all these years and celebrating that union with her closest friends and family. Naruto met the girls near the front door. How is everything going? He asked Hinata. Fine, she replied. Is everything set here? Yeah, he replied. You can come in, he's already outside. Thanks, Naruto, said Sakura, entering her own front door. Sakura, said her mother, holding her arms out to hug her only daughter. Her father stood there next to her mother, looking proud and happy. Hi mom, she answered. Are you excited? Asked her dad. Yeah, I think so, she replied. I'm more content than anything else. But I'm happy, too. That's good to hear, said her father. You've been so happy since Sasuke came back into your life. I've no doubt about this step you are about to take. Congratulations, her mother said, hugging her again. Oh la 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 la. Naruto walked out to stand next to Sasuke once again, who was seemingly getting a little frustrated at the amount of time it was taking to get things going. He was never a patient man. Settle down, Tem, said Naruto. She's here. I'm sure she is just saying hello to her folks and a few friends. HMPH, grunted Sasuke. A few more minutes went by and Naruto with the other guys who were standing up for Sasuke, trying to keep him preoccupied. Finally, music from a harp started to play. It's time, whispered Naruto to his best friend. Sasuke rolled his eyes. He, too, was not a huge fan of formality. First, Hinata appeared and led the procession of ladies down the path towards the men. Tenten followed. Finally, Ino started walking as well. She's next, Sasuke thought to himself. There were butterflies in the pit of his stomach. He felt a small pang of anticipation, something he had not expected at all. Now, for some reason, he couldn't wait to see his bride. And there she was, on the arm of her father, her head angled slightly downward with a gentle smile across her face. By the time she rounded the corner to turn towards Sasuke, she was beaming with an expression of what could only be described as joy. A small tear formed in the corner of Sasuke's eye. He lifted it away with his index finger, still utterly surprised his emotions were getting the better of him, he who was normally so serious and stoic. This was the woman who he loved, the one he wanted to make a life with and have a family with. She was the one, and today he was marrying her. When she reached the front of the crowd, her father gently kissed her on the cheek and walked back to sit with her mother. Now it was just Sakura and Sasuke. There seemed to be no one else but the two of them. He leaned in and they shared a sweet kiss. The officiant cleared his throat. A little premature perhaps, he said aloud. Both Sakura and Sasuke took a step back and turned to face the man who would be performing the ceremony. Sasuke sighed and Sakura said, "Sorry," under her breath, though she still looked as if she couldn't help but smile. The ceremony was not very long. Since neither one of them was very religious, they opted for more of a civil kind of ceremony. Tsunade did stand up and say a few words about Sakura and Sasuke independently, then together as a couple. She had been greatly involved with Sakura ever since she was a genin and had played a major role in Sasuke's life the year or two after he returned to Konoha. Both Naruto and Kakashi also were asked to share a story or two about their fellow teammates, how they persevered through the tough times, and how they had grown together through the years. It brought back some bittersweet, but mostly happy memories to the couple who listened intently. "It is my honor to now pronounce you husband and wife," said the officiant to conclude the ceremony. "You may now seal your love with a kiss." They smiled. Sakura wrapped her arms around Sasuke's neck and held him tightly as they shared their first kiss as husband and wife. The guests cheered and quickly moved to surround the couple. Sakura noted they had something in their hands. Ino caught Sakura's eyes and she held up a basket. She then winked. Sakura nodded, then turned back to Sasuke. The camera clicked as the perfect scene unfolded, the bride kissing the groom amongst a sea of white rose petals floating through the air. They were finally married. "Did you hear? Shikamaru is back in town," said Naruto to Sasuke after finishing a training session they had set up together. With all of Naruto's new responsibilities as the presumed next Hokage, it wasn't like the old days when he and the others from Team 7 would have plenty of time to spar and train together. Sasuke wiped his brow with the sleeve of his shirt as he went to gather his things so he could leave. "No, I hadn't heard. But it doesn't surprise me at all that you knew. You know everything that happens around here these days." Heh, Naruto laughed. "Yeah, I know. I guess being around Hokage Tower all the time has its perks. Though I'm definitely jealous of you." "Jealous? What for?" asked Sasuke. "If I'm not careful, I'm bound to get thick around the middle. I don't get a chance to go on nearly as many missions as everyone else these days, and I never thought I'd say this, but I actually miss training as much as we used to. Well, if you ever need a sparring partner, just let me know. We're still teammates after all," said Sasuke. "Thanks," answered Naruto. "Oh la 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 la." Naruto opened the door to the Uzumaki Hyuga family home. "I'm home," he shouted. "Welcome home," answered Hinata from the living room where she was curled up reading a book. "How was training with Sasuke?" "I really enjoyed it," said Naruto. "It felt good to get out there and stretch the mind and body for a while. I ran into Tenten earlier today. She said that Shikamaru was back in town for a few days on a mission from Suna." "Have you heard anything?" asked Hinata. "I heard that he was back in town, but not what the mission was or anything," said Naruto. "We should get together while he's here," said Hinata. "Yeah, we should," he agreed. He thought for a few seconds. "Hold on, I'll send a message over to the Nara compound." I'm sure that's where he's staying. Naruto left the room for a few minutes and then came back. I invited a bunch of the others as well, said Naruto. Kiba and Shino are off on missions, noted Hinata. I'm sure they won't be coming. Oh, Sai, Choji, Lee, and Ino are out of the village as well, said Naruto. They just left for mist this morning. Oh well, said Hinata. It'll just be a smaller group then. That's okay. I'm sure Shikamaru will be back again soon. It's just a shame there won't be more of us. Oh la 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 la. Naruto, Hinata and the twins were the first to arrive at the barbecue restaurant he had suggested in his message sent earlier that day. Sakura and Sasuke weren't too far behind. Greetings were exchanged between the four. It's really a shame Choji isn't around for this. He really loves this place, noted Naruto when he started perusing the menu prior to the others arriving. Hey you guys, said Shikamaru as he walked towards the section of the restaurant where the others sat. Shikamaru, shouted Naruto jumping up. It's been a while, he stated before grasping his hand and shaking it like a mature adult. Naruto, you surprise me, said Shikamaru noting the handshake. Shika noted that the preparations that Naruto was undergoing to prepare him for leadership must be having a positive effect whether it be conscious or subconscious. Wow, are these really your kids? Hinata beamed. Yes, can you believe how big they are getting? Shikamaru took a seat. How old are they now? 2.5, said Hinata. Just then, Tenten and Neji turned a corner in the restaurant and came into view. Over here, Sakura waved. They headed for them. 2.5 already, noted Shikamaru. Only a few more years until the academy then. Naruto can hardly contain himself about that, said Hinata. He's so excited for them to follow in our footsteps. They could still get Iruka-sensei as their head instructor, too. He's still there. Tenten and Neji took a seat and picked up menus themselves. After a few minutes and from what they already knew, no one else was going to be able to make this get-together. A server meandered over to the table to take the order. Each of the 7 friends ordered the food they wanted. It would be delivered raw and then cooked right there and then at the table. Hinata had brought her own food for the twins. They ate normal food these days, but weren't exactly up for barbecue quite yet. Perhaps she would let them have a taste. And what about drinks? Asked the server. Naruto eyed everyone at the table. Is sake alright tonight? Anyone want anything else? He asked. I'll have to pass, said Sakura. Just water for me. Me, too, said Tenten who had turned a little pink in the face. I'll have water, too. Great. Sake for the table along with 2 glasses of water, said the server. I'll be right back with that. Naruto gave Sakura a strange look. You of all people, the protege of the Hokage, drinking water. Sasuke just closed his eyes and told himself to be patient. Shut up, Dobi, he said just barely audible. Naruto, would you mind just drop? She started. Yeah, I remember that time just after the war ended and when Sasuke had just come back, we all went out for a little celebration and wouldn't you know it? She drank us all under the table. You sure do love your sake, Sakura. Womp. She hit him over the head. Think. Will you Naruto? She yelled at him. Wah, he questioned, not having a clue what he did wrong. He sat there bewildered for just a few seconds. Naruto, do you remember just a few years ago I wasn't allowed to drink sake? Asked Hinata, trying to help the situation. But you were preg, he started. His eyes went wide and he looked at his 2 teammates. Seriously. Sasuke let just the hint of a grin come across his face even as he was still trying to be patient. Sakura beamed and nodded. We weren't quite ready to tell everyone yet, she added. But under the circumstances, well, yes, I'm pregnant. Only 2 months though. Congratulations you two. Congratulations. Were said all around the table. Oh la 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 la. The next morning, Sakura was scheduled to work a shift at the hospital. Apart from her usual emergency work, she had 2 appointments scheduled back to back in the morning. One was the Uzumaki twins, and the other was, well, she couldn't quite make out the scribbled name on the appointment book. Who took this appointment? She wondered. I can't make it out at all. Ah well, as long as they show up on time, I'll just wait to see who it is then. Hinata, Kiro and Aiko arrived on time for their checkup. Sakura checked them over thoroughly and determined there wasn't a thing wrong with them. They were strong, healthy children growing just as planned. Sakura knew, however, that although the usual checkup was important, that wasn't why she got to see them so often. She pulled out a small pen light and shone them into Kiro's eyes. She examined one eye, then the other. Was all she muttered. She put the pen light down and placed both of her hands on his temples, one on each side of his head. A green glow could be seen as she closed her eyes to concentrate on what she was doing. Once Kiro was finished, she moved on and repeated the same tasks with Aiko. Is anything different? Asked Hinata. We just might see something today, said Sakura. From Kiro, that is. Aiko's pathways still aren't clear. It may look like a Byakugan, but right now they still won't function like one. I see, said Hinata. But you said there might be a chance with Kiro. That's right, answered Sakura. Have you been instructing him so we can test him? Asked Sakura. Yes, said Hinata. He should have a good idea on how to activate it, if he can. It's really hard to describe a feeling like activating Byakugan to a 2-year-old, though. Hopefully I did well enough. I'm sure you did just fine, said Sakura. She turned her attention to Kiro. Kiro, will you step over here for a moment? Sakura asked. He, of course, did as he was asked. Sakura positioned him so that he could look out of the window to a forested training area. Kiro, you don't see any shinobi in that forest, correct? Asked Sakura. Too far, he replied and shook his head. Do you remember what your mom said about your Byakugan? Asked Sakura. Can you try to turn it on for me? Keep looking at that same place out there. Kiro struggled and squinted for a bit and nothing seemed to be happening. Keep concentrating on that forest, said Sakura, trying to help. Hinata had told her once that a point of focus makes it easier, especially for beginners. Hinata saw his struggling and kneeled down next to him. Sometimes by saying the word, it helps you focus on what you are doing. Do what I showed you before, just this time say, Byakugan. Kiro listened to his mother and turned to face the forest. He looked in one spot and, Byakugan, he shouted in his immature child's voice. Wua. He sounded amazed. I think we have something, said Sakura. How many shinobi? Can you count them now? 7. I think, he answered. They're really shiny. It wasn't important how many he saw, but the fact that he saw any so that he could count them was the main point. Hinata, your son has a functioning Byakugan, said Sakura. Hinata smiled from ear to ear. At least now they knew that someone with only half Hyuga blood could still activate a Byakugan. Knock knock. Yes, asked Sakura as she turned to the door. An administrator briefly stuck her head in. Your next appointment is here and waiting. Thank you, said Sakura. Oh, Sakura, I'm so sorry this took longer than planned, said Hinata. It's no problem, said Sakura. After all, she didn't even know who would have even booked another appointment with her that day. Hinata grabbed Kiro by the hand and picked up Aiko in her arms while Sakura opened the door to walk them out. Just give Aiko more time, said Sakura. This is new territory we are working in, medically, I mean, so. Hinata was the first to notice and her attention veered somewhere else. Hi Tenten, she said passing by the kunoichi who was sitting in a nearby chair. Sakura stopped talking immediately. Are you my next appointment? She asked. Tenten turned a little pink. I am, she replied. That's when Hinata put 2 and 2 together. She smiled. I'll catch you later, Sakura. Bye, Tenten. Okay, bye, Sakura replied. She turned to her next appointment and motioned for her to come into the room next to where she and Hinata had just been. She closed the door. What seems to be trouble? Asked Sakura. Does this have anything to do with why you didn't have sake last night? Tenten smiled. Right on the money, as usual. Take a seat on the table and lie down. Pull your shirt up so I can see your belly, said Sakura. Tenten did as she was asked. Sakura placed her hands above Tenten's bare abdomen. She allowed her chakra to penetrate Tenten's body. She examined the various areas inside of her intestines, bladder, uterus, and there it is. Confirmed, said Sakura aloud. It's very small, but you are definitely pregnant. I'm impressed you could feel a change to your body this minuscule. Neji found it first, she said. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I guess that's what I get being married to a guy who can see my entire chakra network just by looking at it. He saw an anomaly in the right spot and asked me to come here to confirm it. I see, said Sakura. Well, he was correct. Congratulations. Thanks, answered Tenten. I guess we're going to have our first babies around the same time, said Sakura. They might even be classmates at the academy, said Tenten. Or put on the same team, said Sakura. She realized it was pushing it a bit too far with all this conjecture, but they were both excited for what was to come. Oh la 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 la. Naruto walked through the door and noted the smell of fresh cooking in the air. Hinata was probably making dinner. He made his way to the kitchen after taking off his shoes. No, shouted Aiko. The twins were also in the kitchen. She had her hands around a small pink blanket. Me, shouted Kiro back at Aiko, indicating he wanted what she was tugging at, namely the pink blanket. Now, kids, said Naruto. He quickly snatched both kids up, one in each arm. What have I told you about fighting? But, started Aiko. No, buts, Naruto replied. I don't know who did what and it is not for me to say. Aiko, I've told you not to be so possessive about things. Kiro, if she was using it, don't steal it from her. Now you two go work it out. He placed them back on the floor and they scurried off out of the room. Nice one, said Hinata. She rather enjoyed Naruto's parenting style. He didn't often dictate how things should work, but set the scenario where the kids had to think about the situation and decide for themselves how to make something work. For the most part, Kiro and Aiko had made exactly the right choices. Naruto kissed Hinata's cheek and hugged her from behind as she stood in front of the stew that was cooking on the stove. How did the visit with Sakura go? Any progress? Naruto asked, taking a seat in one of the chairs near the kitchen table. I didn't want to interrupt you earlier since you had important visitors today, but Kiro finally activated his Byakugan today, said Hinata. Why didn't you send me a message? He asked. That's a pretty big deal. I figured it could wait a few hours until you got home, said Hinata. But nothing on Aiko? Naruto asked. Hinata shook her head. It's still possible though, we just have to keep waiting. Byakugan, shouted Kiro from the next room. What on earth? Asked Naruto. Watch the pot for a moment. I think Kiro and I need to have a little discussion about the Byakugan and what it means to overuse it and waste chakra, said Hinata. Hinata rushed off to the next room and Naruto just smiled. Oh la 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 la. Naruto woke to a strange sound the next morning. He looked at the other half of the bed. It was empty. He knew that sound. Quickly he popped up out of bed and ran to the bathroom. Yes, indeed, Hinata was on the floor with her head in the toilet bowl. Naruto grabbed her hair and held it for her. A few more heaves and she was done. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, I think so, she confirmed. You haven't done that since. Then both of their eyes went wide. They were thinking the same thing. I think you might need another visit with Sakura today, noted Naruto. I still don't see the reason we all couldn't go together, said Hinata to Naruto as they walked along the path between Suna and Konoha. Given Hinata's condition, they were taking their time getting to the village hidden in the sand. Even though there has been peace for years, there are still missing nins out here that want to do harm to us, said Naruto. He was getting better at looking at the big picture when making decisions these days. And with all of you expecting at about the same time, well. He didn't even bother to finish that last statement. it was obvious what he was trying to say. I get it, said Hinata. Even Shikamaru sent a messenger bird just to make sure we had made plans to split the three of you up. Something about protecting the next king or something. Half the time I don't have a clue what he's talking about, but I think I got the gist of what he was trying to say, said Naruto. It just would have been nice to have one of them here to talk with, noted Hinata. Now that she was adult, she liked the idea of having close female confidants to talk with and not always the brusque male shinobi who so outnumbered them in just about anything they did. I don't know what to tell you, said Naruto. The timing was bad. There are only 4 of you who are really close friends and I'm sorry Ino decided to go with Sakura this time around. Hinata sighed and looked at the pair who was walking in front of them. At least Kiba and Daikashi decided to come with us. Kiba had married a fellow member of the Inuzuka clan not long ago and she had decided to join him to celebrate this happy occasion. Not being a shinobi, she had never had the opportunity to travel far outside of the borders of Konoha. Meanwhile, in Suna, it was nice of Suna to give us these accommodations, noted Sakura. She and Sasuke had arrived earlier that morning along with Ino, Choji, Shino and his new wife, Khonshu. Considering why we're here, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Said Sasuke flatly. I don't know, said Sakura taking a dress from the pack she had carried and hanging it up in the closet. I mean, we were invited, they didn't have to do anything other than that. Just be happy I even said it was okay for us to come to this, said Sasuke. He walked over to Sakura who was still unpacking the few things she had stashed away in her pack. He stood behind her and hugged her to him. Gently, he placed his right hand over her now protruding bump. Sakura smiled and placed her hand over his. I know you are protective, but it's not like I'm about to give birth or anything, said Sakura. I'm technically not even into my 3rd trimester yet. I've seen some of the worst scum of the earth in my travels, said Sasuke. If you ever got hurt just because of an unnecessary trip, I would not be able to forgive myself. Sakura turned to face her husband and placed a hand upon the side of his face. She gently went onto her tiptoes so she could reach his lips, and gave him a peck. You mean well, I know. But I could trip in my own bathtub and do some serious damage as well. I'm not going to stop living or doing what I want because I'm afraid of every bad thing that could happen in this world. Sasuke knew that Sakura could handle herself. He also knew the chances of anything bad happening were very slim. Not only was there peace in the world, but Suna and Konoha were the tightest of allies and the likelihood that an attack would happen here was near zero. Not to mention that due to the occasion, the number of incredibly strong shinobi, some of the strongest Indri was near zero. Not to mention that due to the occasion, the number of incredibly strong shinobi, SN the entire world, were going to be in the near vicinity for the next day or two. I'm hungry, Sasuke, said Sakura. His mind had wandered as he thought. He focused and noted that Sakura was now done unpacking. Where do you want to go? There's a small bakery not far from here, said Sakura. She had been to Suna enough to know where her favorite shops and restaurants were. Okay, let's go, agreed Sasuke. We've got some time. Oh la 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 la. Hold up, Sasuke, said Sakura as they walked towards the bakery Sakura had in mind. What? Asked Sasuke. There's Tenten and Neji in that shop over there, she said at the same time grabbing his hand and starting to walk over to the familiar faces. Tenten, she shouted, waving her arm in the air to get her attention. Tenten's gaze moved from Neji to the voice that was now calling her. Hi Sakura, Tenten greeted her friend. When did you get here? This morning, Sakura answered. You were first, then me, and Hinata should be getting here pretty soon. That was the plan. Yeah, it was kind of crazy how they sent us in waves, wasn't it? Asked Tenten. Though I kind of understand it. Better to be safe than sorry and all that. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. As long as Sasuke was with me, I just did what they told me to do, Sakura answered. It wasn't worth arguing over. Neji and Sasuke simply stood there listening to the two ladies catch up with one another. You wouldn't think that they are both from the same village the way they are talking, said Neji sarcastically under his breath so that only Sasuke could hear him. Or that they just saw each other 2 days ago, added Sasuke. Hey, let's get out of here, said Neji. Where to? Asked Sasuke. Shika's place, said Neji. I know where he and Temari live. After making some polite excuses, both Sasuke and Neji left the two kunoichi and headed not too far away to a building near where the cage housed his offices. Just as Neji brought his hand to the door to knock, the door flung open. Neji caught himself, but looked stunned nonetheless. Out stepped Shikamaru, who quickly closed the door behind him. Oh hey, guys, he greeted his friends. I see you made it safely from the Leaf Village. Yeah, said Neji. Sasuke nodded. Come with me, he said and grabbed both of their forearms and yanked them away from his apartment with no explanation. Is everything alright? Asked Sasuke to the man basically dragging him along. It will be, he replied. Come get a quick drink with me. My nerves are just frazzled right now and I can barely think. You, not be able to think? Questioned Neji. Oh, it's a whole new ballgame around here, said Shikamaru. Something I've never had to deal with before. The cage is dragging from that new baby of his and his wife who is exhausted as well. Tonight is the Konkuro's wedding to Shizune, and now Temari decides to start harassing me about kids again. It's problem after problem around here. Sorry to hear that, said Neji, still being dragged along but now just going with the flow. It didn't take long before Shikamaru stopped at what looked to be a local watering hole. This is where I go when I need a bit of time to myself, he explained. Let's go in. They took a seat at one of the tables. It was nearly deserted, which made sense since it was now mid-afternoon and the lunch crowd had dissipated. Are you going to be okay? Asked Neji. I'm fine, said Shika. It's just a drag sometimes. I'm better when she's on my side, but when she starts asking about kids, it all goes downhill from there. You're not giving in? Asked Neji. Someone came over to get their order. No, I'm still not comfortable with the whole idea, he replied. Even though I work as a top-level advisor for Suna, it still doesn't feel right. I'm still a Konoha shinobi and I've just got this feeling in my gut that me being here isn't going to be forever. I don't want to have a kid, even with her, and then raise it wrong. I want to be content and happy with where we are in our relationship and our future before taking such a big step. I can't say I blame you, said Sasuke. It has definitely been a little different. I'm overprotective and all I can think about is what could possibly happen to both of them. I can't imagine what it would be like not being in sync with the one you love. Same here, said Neji. Though as hormonal as she has been, I must say Tenten makes a beautiful pregnant kunoichi. You're still head over heels, said Shikamaru. Good to see it, nay. So how's the new baby in the family? Asked Sasuke. Adorable, said Shikamaru flatly. But what else would you expect from those two? He took a swig of the drink that had been delivered to the table. What's her name again? Asked Neji. Karura. After his mother, he noted. And she has his hair. She stands out, that's for sure. I'm sure she'll make an appearance this evening as well. It's her uncle getting married after all. Oh la 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 la. The wedding went off with only a small hitch. It turned out that Matsuri couldn't make the wedding after all. Apparently Karura was sick and Gaara thought it best they stay home. Other than that, everyone was happy, safe, and wished the new husband and wife all the best. As had been planned, Shizune would now be moving to Suna, just as Shikamaru had done before, to be with her new spouse, a sibling of the cage. When Gaara was giving the toast to the bride and groom, he relayed the story from back at the formal dinner the evening before Naruto's wedding and how Konkuro just couldn't keep his eyes off of Shizune. There had been some questions relative to her age. She was a few years older than he was, but they quickly filed that problem under the "we don't really care" category and quickly moved forward. Gaara summed up his speech by welcoming Shizune to Suna as the wife of his brother, a close ally, and hoped that she would see fit as to become an advisor to him just as Shikamaru had. Applause could be heard throughout the room. The guests were mostly from Suna or Konoha and definitely appreciated the warm welcome that was being offered to Shizune by the most powerful shinobi in Suna, the Kazekage. By the time the speech was done, the formal part of the evening was just about over. Shizune and Kankuro, both looking beyond joyful, were ready to leave the festivities and embark on their honeymoon. As soon as the bride and groom had left, the crowd dissipated little by little until there were just a handful of people left. The three pregnant shinobi had called it a night even before the bride and groom had left, but their spouses, Naruto, Sasuke, and Neji, had decided to stay to the very end. Shikamaru was still there. So were Shino, Kiba and Choji. So what now? Asked Sasuke. I'm not ready to go back yet, said Naruto. There's always that place we went to earlier, noted Shikamaru. What place? Asked Naruto. You weren't here earlier, Dobi, said Sasuke. Yeah, let's all go there, said Choji. As with any large group over a couple of people, the group of friends kept talking and milling about even after the decision to go had been made. Are you guys ready? Naruto finally asked the group. It was meant as a rhetorical question just to get them moving out the door. They walked out of the hall and towards the same place Shika had frequented. Sasuke looked over and saw that Gaara was also just leaving. Sasuke was about to call out to him, but then noticed he was talking to someone who looked very much like Matsuri. Looking closer, there was no question it was her when she turned and a small tuft of bright red hair could be seen coming out of a bundle she held in her arms. Sasuke could only wonder why she had shown up after it was all over, not that it was his business or anything. Perhaps the baby was feeling better and she just wanted to walk him home. Sasuke shrugged. He probably wouldn't ever know. One thing was true though as he silently turned off his Sharingan. Shika was right, she is definitely adorable. And soon, realization had started to set in. Tenten, we're leaving, shouted Neji from the front door of his and Tenten's house located within the Hyuga family compound. Tenten didn't respond at first. Then Neji heard a baby's cry coming from the other room. Tenten, is everything alright? Shouted Neji. When he received no reply again, he turned to the two children who were with him. Can you two wait here for a minute while I check on Tenten? Sure, answered Aiko. Uncle Neji, asked Kiro, is everything okay with Emi? Although he was not really their uncle, that is what the twins called him because of the closeness of their two families. Neji looked down at the children currently in his charge and smiled. She's just fine. Emi was just born not too long ago, so she requires a lot of attention. Since she can't talk like we can, this is how she tells us something is wrong. He walked away from the twins and towards the back rooms of their house to check on his wife. Not more than a minute later, Tenten appeared holding baby Amiko Hyuga in her arms. Neji followed closely behind. Is she really alright? Asked Aiko. She's fine. She only needed to be changed, said Tenten. Again? Asked Neji. But I just changed her. It's not like she plans when she is going to fill her diaper, Neji. She just is, explained Tenten, who was inwardly laughing at her husband. Neji Hyuga was phenomenally logical and serious about everything. When Emi was born and their world got a bit more chaotic, he still struggled accepting how things seemed to work now, most of which did not follow logic at all. Are we ready now? Asked Neji. HN, said Kiro with a nod and led the way. They walked through the streets of Konoha towards their intended destination. When it was finally in sight, Kiro and Aiko took off running. Hold up, kids, shouted Tenten after them. It's alright, said Neji. It's not like they can get past the front desk without an adult anyway. Neji, Tenten and Emi made it to the front door and entered the lobby of Konoha Hospital. Inside, both Kiro and Aiko stood there looking a little lost. When they saw Neji and Tenten come inside after them, they ran up to them. Where are mommy and daddy? Asked Aiko. We need to ask that nice lady over there, answered Tenten, who then corralled the children over to an information desk. Where are my mommy and daddy? Asked Aiko once again, this time to the hospital worker. My, how you two have grown, noted the lady behind the desk. Only yesterday you were born here yourself. She reached to pick up a bowl from the desk and held it down for the kids to look into it. Inside were small pieces of candy and she allowed each of them to take a piece. Next she opened a large book and ran her finger down the page. Here it is, she said aloud to herself. She looked up at both Neji and Tenten and informed them, Hinata Hyuga is on the second floor, in the maternity ward, room 215. The baby was born this morning so she should be resting right now. Just knock lightly before you enter. Thank you, said Tenten before turning to head towards the nearest set of stairs. As they walked, Neji explained, Kiro, Aiko, your mommy had another baby this morning. So her belly isn't big anymore? Asked Aiko. It's probably still pretty big, but the baby no longer lives in her belly, explained Tenten. Ooh, said Aiko, not really understanding any of it. She is probably very tired and sore, continued Neji. We will need to be very quiet and gentle with your mommy, okay? Both twins nodded. They found the room with no difficulty. The door was open so they could see Hinata's feet on the bed and Naruto sitting in a chair near the end of the bed. To get their attention, Neji knocked on the doorframe very lightly. Naruto's head snapped to the side when he heard the noise. He smiled. Oh hey Neji, he greeted. Daddy, shouted Kiro as he spotted his father and ran towards him. Naruto had been by Hinata's beside for about 2 days now so the twins had not seen him for a bit. That being said, missions lasting more than 2 days weren't unheard of, but they did miss him each and every time he was gone. And this time, not only was Naruto gone, but their mom was not there with them either, which made it just a bit harder. Hugs, he said aloud and both kids jumped into his arms. Hi Hinata, Tenten finally greeted her friend. How did it go? A bit easier than last time, Hinata admitted. Not only was it my second time, but I only had one baby to deliver this time around. Yeah, I can see how that would be easier, Tenten joked. I've only had one and I can't imagine carrying and giving birth to 2 at the same time. Neji stood off to one side a little uncomfortable with the situation. He, as ever, was very formal and serious. The socialization aspect of having close friends was still not his forte. All heads turned once again when another light knock was heard on the doorframe. Lady Tsunade, questioned Neji when he saw who it was. To what do we owe the honor? I'm just checking in on Hinata here, she said casually enough. Are you feeling alright, Hinata? Why yes, thank you very much for your concern, answered Hinata. You guys should have seen her, started Naruto. Granny did a great job all last night delivering Hikori. Eyes turned once again to the Hokage. But why? Started Tenten. I had originally expected Sakura to be the one delivering the baby, explained Hinata. After all, she is the medical shinobi I chose to visit during my pregnancy. Unfortunately, she was unable to come for the birth. Unable to come, repeated Neji. Then it dawned on him and his mouth gaped open. You're not saying that she's, started Tenten. You got it, interrupted Tsunade. If her baby is born today, then the 2 of them will share a birthday. What were the chances, right? Asked Naruto rhetorically. Yet another light tapping on the doorframe was heard. All eyes turned to see who it was. Ah, here he is, said Tsunade. In walked a nurse with a baby on a cart. It's feeding time, said the newcomer. Oh, we should leave then, started Tenten. It's all right, said Hinata. I'm used to it by now. It's not a big deal if you want to stay. The nurse picked up the baby and held it for Hinata to take from her. It took only a quick adjustment of her loose gown and the baby latched on almost immediately and began to drink. Wow, said Tenten. That was quick. I've had lots of experience, said Hinata. You'll get used to it soon enough. The nurse walked back out of the room and the Hokage turned to leave as well. I'd better go back and check on Sakura, said Tsunade. It's a good thing she prepared me for this well ahead of time, not that I was expecting both of you to go on the same day. Give her our best when you see her, said Hinata. Yes, please do, added Tenten. Tsunade nodded and walked out of the room. So how are you two doing? Naruto asked of his kids. Miss you and mommy, said Kiro. When are you coming home? Tomorrow, probably, Naruto answered. And we'll be bringing Hikori with us. He's a part of our family now. Can he play with me? Asked Kiro. Naruto laughed. He's a little too small now. He's even younger than Emi and you've seen how much care and attention she needs. All help, shouted Aiko. I'm counting on you, said Hinata to her daughter. Oh la 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 la. Tsunade entered the birthing room down the hall to a near-silent atmosphere. Sasuke was sitting in a chair next to Sakura's bedside, holding the one hand she held out for him. Sakura was still and had her eyes closed. An ordinary onlooker would have thought she was just sleeping. Sasuke had his head down and was seemingly concentrating on something when the Hokage entered. When he heard her enter, his head popped up and he nodded politely to her. How is she doing? Asked Tsunade quietly. The same, whispered Sasuke back. I've never seen anyone as calm and in control as she has been. That perfect chakra control and her medial ninjutsu abilities are definitely making this much easier than most women have it, noted Tsunade. Just then, Sakura exhaled and opened her eyes. She noted the Hokage was back in the room. How is Hinata? Was the first thing she asked. In much better shape than when she delivered, said Tsunade. She's all cleaned up and the baby was feeding when I just left her. Neji and Tenten brought the twins to visit and meet the baby, too. Does the baby have a name yet? Asked Sakura. Hikori Uzumaki, answered Tsunade. That's lovely, said Sakura. I believe it means, to be proud of, or something to that extent. Lady, thank you again, not only for helping me through this, but taking care of Hinata as well. I'm just sorry I couldn't be there for her. I think she'll forgive you, said Tsunade. And you're welcome. Not that I'm doing much here, you've got this completely under control with all the training you've had. She pulled up a small bench and placed her arm between Sakura's legs. Sakura knew this meant that her progress needed to be checked. Sakura winced a bit as Tsunade checked her. Well, asked Sasuke. Do you feel the need to push yet? Asked Tsunade. Your contractions should be quite frequent at this point, and if you aren't already feeling the urge to push, you will very soon. Sakura gasped for a quick second and squinched her eyes. A contraction had hit unexpectedly. Apparently, she had spent a bit too much time talking and not concentrating. She squeezed Sasuke's hand to the extent that he called out in pain. No urge yet, she said once the pain level had gotten back to tolerable again. But I will begin pushing when the urge hits as long as you think I'm ready. You are good to go, noted Tsunade. Sorry, but I'm going to start meditating again, said Sakura. It's much more tolerable when I'm focused. I don't blame you one bit, said Tsunade. Sakura made herself comfortable and closed her eyes once again. You should consider yourself lucky, Tsunade said to Sasuke. You have no idea how hellish this can be for both the woman and the man without abilities such as hers. Oh la 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 la. Hikori sat off to Hinata's side in a small bassinet as his mother dozed, covered in the warmth of the last rays of sunshine shining through the window. Naruto had a few scrolls with him and was perusing them in the same chair he sat in earlier at the end of the bed. As it was entering evening, the door was now closed. Then that all too familiar tapping near the door was heard yet again. Naruto didn't want whoever it was to wake Hinata, so he leapt from the chair to see who it was and what they wanted. He opened the door to find Sasuke standing there. Sasuke, is everything alright? Naruto asked. Oh, Naruto, Sasuke replied, seeing his friend open the door. Although he was the one who technically did the knocking and the visiting, upon seeing Naruto he suddenly felt a bit strange. Naruto squeezed out into the hallway and let the door close behind him. Your eyes are red, Sasuke, he noted. Is Sakura alright? Sasuke just started laughing to himself. It was apparent to Naruto that his friend was acting weird and the laughing was more of a release of tension than anything else. Dobi, I'm a father, said Sasuke matter-of-factly. Naruto understood now what was going on. It was the flood of emotions that occurred after your firstborn had finally arrived. His entire world had just changed in just a few seconds. So what are you doing here, Baka? Naruto asked. Sakura's sleeping and they took the baby to the nursery. She was amazing. No outbursts or cries of pain at all, she was in control the entire time. I hardly even knew when the baby was being born other than Granny telling me what was happening, Sasuke explained. I can just imagine since she is so skilled with her chakra, but she probably ended up exhausting herself in the process, said Naruto. And what? Asked Sasuke. He saw the questioning look on Naruto's face, then he understood. It's a boy. We named him Kasai, and he's the